Hello and welcome to this episode of Behind the Curtain. I'm your host, Gio Battaglia, and thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Spin the wheel and you'll likely land on a talent Elvio Fernandes possesses. He's a musician, songwriter, producer, mentor, and entrepreneur. He's toured the world as a member of Daughtry, helped shape the next generation of local performers through Rockstar Academy, and created a new community gathering place with Elvios in Webster. Now, as Daughtry celebrates 20 years with a re-recorded album and an upcoming unplugged show at Del Lago, Fernandes is continuing to balance life on the road with the businesses and music community he has built here at home. Elvio Fernandes, welcome to Behind the Curtain.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm super, super excited. One of the reasons I've been super excited to get you on here, I know it was a few years past, but everything that you did to help Katie Strong during that time of year, very close friends with her niece, Jordan. Yeah. So just seeing the community come together with that and the large part that you played in as well, wanted to give you your thanks on behalf of myself there. But I want to talk a little bit first before we get into the ventures. Like I said, spin that wheel. I want to talk about your Rochester roots first. So sure. You've performed around the world, but you've continued to make the Rochester area your home. So what has kept you rooted here?
Family's big for me. I grew up, my entire family's Portuguese. And, like I said, family is very important to us. And, I have two boys, both sets of grandparents. My entire family's here. Literally everything is here. And I just made the decision that, life is short and I want to spend my time with loved ones. And, fortunately in today's day and age, you don't have to move to Los Angeles or New York to have a career in music. So, I chose to stay in the city that, has had my back my entire career. I mean, I learned a lot in the local music scene. So I just felt, along with the family roots, I felt a responsibility almost to stay here and to give back and to, do what I can to help, foster that next generation of musicians. And, like I said, I love it here. The weather sucks, but I do love it here.
And those, things that you've done to give back have just absolutely flourished, which we'll get to in a minute here. But how did growing up in a Portuguese family influence your musical identity?
So we were always surrounded by music. My I say it to this day, my grandfather is probably the main reason why I'm a musician and I chose to pursue this. He was an incredible guitar player, but it wasn't your standard guitar. It was a Portuguese guitar. And him and my mom would play this music called fado, which is it's very melancholic. It's like Portuguese folk music, and she would write her own songs and he would play, and it was just this beautiful sound that I remember as a child. I remember hiding underneath the kitchen table while I was supposed to be in bed sleeping, just to listen to them play and sing. And then at an early age, they realized that I had an ear for music. And they put an accordion in my hands, and I started playing that as a little kid and started joining them in their little jam sessions. And, it was just, especially during the holidays, it was just something we were always around. My mom would be singing, my grandfather would be playing guitar. I'd be plugging away at whatever was around. And it's just some of my fondest memories as a child.
Oh, I love that. I love when there's a good background story like that. And before Daughtry, many people locally knew you through Uncle Plum. What did those years in Rochester's music scene teach you about being a performer?
Gosh, I learned so much. When we first started the band, which was the late 90s, I had no intentions of being the lead singer of the band. We were looking for a singer, and long story short, we couldn't find one. And the guys were like, why don't you do it? And I just was terrified. And so it forced me to, be comfortable in the spotlight and be comfortable in that role, which I still to this day, I don't like my voice. I don't like hearing it back. And I think that's a common thing with singers.
Sure.
But we played some great shows. Those are years that I'll never forget. They shaped me as a musician, and I believe prepared me in many ways for my career now and what I do in Daughtry. But, we did East End festivals in front of thousands of people, and, so many great memories, so many great shows. We did a CD of all original material that was well received. And that CD fast forward, got in the hands of a producer, musician named Brian McKnight. And through Brian McKnight, I met a gentleman named Ace Young. Ace Young was on American Idol the same season Chris was on American Idol.
Oh my gosh.
So it's all related. Yeah, all of these things led to where I am now, and I'm grateful for all of it. And Uncle Plum was so much fun.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And you were already well established in Rochester, but your career, as everyone knows, eventually expanded far beyond the local music scene. Talk about how Daughtry entered the picture.
So yeah, so I'd met this kid, Ace Young, great singer. He tries out for American Idol, makes it onto the show. He's one of the favorites to win the show. He and Chris become friends on the show. And Ace and I had been working together, writing songs and just collaborating for a while before that. So Ace would play some of the songs that we had written for Chris, and that's how Chris, knew of me. And then I, at one point, asked Chris if he had any unfinished songs that he wanted another perspective on. Kind of a risk on my part, just to kind of, I didn't know if I could go there with him yet, but I did. And he said, you know what, I do. I have an unfinished idea. It's a song called Crazy. I'm going to send it to you, do your thing with it, and let's see what happens. So I finished the song, and that song ended up on the third Daughtry album, an album called Break the Spell, and that started everything. And then he had asked me to go on tour to support the album as they call it a utility musician. I played guitar, keyboards, background vocals, and here we are 14 years later.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What did you feel? Did you feel you had to prove anything when you entered an already established group?
I knew that I had to be value added. I didn't replace anybody. They were a 5-piece band at the time. And, my role was to kind of put the icing on the cake, sing all the harmonies, all of we call it the candy, to just kind of fill out the sound. And so I knew I had to be value added. And it was interesting because in the beginning, when I flew out to quote audition for the band, the rest of the guys in the band were a bit unsure as to whether or not they needed another guy. And to be honest with you, I say this all the time, especially with the kids at Rockstar Academy. Being a professional musician, yes, a lot of it has to do with your abilities and playing. So much of it has to do with being a good hang and being somebody you can live with, because you're traveling so much. You're on a tour bus. It's a small area. But yeah, the guys in the band weren't sure whether or not they needed an extra guy. So I made sure to do my homework. I learned every single harmony, every, part. I came prepared. And, after the first rehearsal, they gave me their blessing, and they were like, yeah, it's definitely better with you. And that was a good feeling. I wasn't sure how they were going to receive it. So, yeah, it's about it there.
And you've now been part of Daughtry for a significant portion of its history. You said 14 years,
Yep.
and the band is marking 2 decades together. That milestone has also created an opportunity to revisit some of the music that started it all,
Sure.
with the re-recorded album that recently came out. What, when you weren't part of the original studio recordings of several of those tracks, what was it like helping recreate the music?
It was cool. So, one of the things that I had done, there was a period before I went to rehearse with them to quote audition, where we weren't sure if it was going to happen. The rest of the guys in the band were very unsure, and Chris wasn't quite sure if it was the right thing to do. So I took it upon myself, and I say that this was probably one of the main reasons why it did happen for me. When an artist goes, you've probably seen this a million times, but like when a new album comes out and they're promoting the album, they'll go to radio stations by themselves with an acoustic guitar and just do a stripped down version of whatever the hit is at the time or the single that they're promoting. So I went on YouTube and I found Chris doing versions of his hits on radio stations where it was just him and a guitar. I extracted the audio, and then I recorded my own piano parts to these songs that didn't have piano. And then I also sang the harmonies and blended it with his voice so he could hear what I would do. And I really believe that was pivotal in the decision to bring me on, because Chris said that he had played those recordings for his producer at the time, which is Howard Benson. And Howard mentioned, wow, your voices sound great together. And, he was able to hear, oh, this is what it'll sound like if we bring him on. And That's kind of that was my approach to those older songs that didn't necessarily have keyboards. I just added my own parts that I felt would enhance the song, but not try to be the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to step on anything. I'm just going to add little nuances here and there and do the harmonies. And again, here we are 14 years later. But,
Did any of the songs take on a new emotional meaning during the re-recording process rather than playing it live?
Not really, only because, I mean, from my perspective, now, if you ask that question to Chris, I'm almost certain he's going to say yes, because he wrote those. You know what I mean? Those came from a different place. I had nothing to do with the writing of those original songs. Now, I remember those. I remember the period, the time period in my life where those were all over the radio. They definitely impacted me in different ways. But recording those, it was my job to stay true to the original, vision. Again, not try to stand out, but just serve the song, which is, in my opinion, the most important role of a professional musician, is to serve the song. Everybody's going to have their moments to shine and to do solos and things like that. But the song will tell you what it needs. And I think that's a trait that successful professional musicians have. Some people can't do that. Some people just have this, they can't help themselves but to shred all over the song and put their stamp on it. And that's great, but sometimes it doesn't need that.
Right.
So you have to know when's your moment, or just serve the song. So
good.
Yeah.
With the upcoming 20-year anniversary tour, what is it like to put together a set list for an anniversary tour rather than in promotion for a new album?
Great question. You're good at this.
Oh, thank you.
So that's always tricky, because usually the songs that the band likes to play don't necessarily line up with what the crowd wants to hear or the diehard fans. So we've done this thing where I believe it's on our website, where each city can vote on their favorite songs from the re-records, and whatever songs finish first or second, I believe we'll probably learn them all. But depending on which city we're playing in, which song was popular in that city, we'll add those to the set list. You got to play the big hits. You can't not play those. But in terms of the the filler tracks or the B-sides, or however you want to call it, it'll be a mix, and some are so much fun to play that some that didn't experience as much, commercial success, some of those are the funnest to play, and then you reimagine those. And this is an acoustic tour. It's a full band acoustic tour. So it's not, this massive electric rock and roll. It's going to be more stripped down, more intimate, which I personally love, because it gives me the ability, as a piano player, keyboard player, to, just improvise. And again, each night could be different. What are you feeling, tonight versus what you played last night? It could change. And then the band reacts to that, and we all play off each other, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But these tours I really do enjoy, because it's a complete departure from what we're normally doing.
When I got my tickets for Del Lago, I was like, what is a Daughtry set list looking like these days? And I was so surprised to see Separate Ways on there, and excited as well. And then I saw your post just the other day talking about putting that song on the set list. So talk a little bit about that story there.
Ooh, that song. So that song's always been mentioned for many years. We always look to remake songs, and Daughtry has done tons of great covers over the years, even before I joined. Anything from In the Air Tonight from Phil Collins, Rebel Yell, With or Without You. I think we did Boys of Summer for a little bit. There's been so many, but so we're always looking for a cover. And that song had always kind of been brought up in discussions. And I believe Chris was watching Stranger Things, and that song was featured on there, and it just kind of reminded him, you know what I mean? Like, this is a great song. I know we've talked about it, but it was like the icing on the cake, and he wanted to do a version of it. And then he was able to bring on Lizzie Hale, who is an incredible singer, it was kind of like a duet. And that was a ton of fun. And to this day, one of my favorite songs to play live, especially in the electric set, because it's such high energy. And, we played it at Download Fest in London, and Lizzie came out and sang it with us.
Oh, how cool.
So much fun. Yeah.
And the keyboard really introduction immediately identifies the song. So that's a big responsibility to have there.
I love it.
Oh, I love it too. And like we said, fans will soon get to hear the band's music in that different setting when the anniversary tour comes to Del Lago, as well as a bunch of other cities.
Yep.
So what can audiences expect from this particular show? You said the word unplugged.
Yep. So you're not going to get electric guitars. Everything's going to be acoustic guitars, acoustic bass. I will play predominantly piano. Drummer's going to play drums, but it might be a smaller kit or something a little more subdued. I would imagine there's going to be some storytelling, stories behind the songs, and just some improvisation, just an intimate look into the history of the band, basically. And, when you strip these songs down and you strip the production away and you strip all the energy away, it really showcases a well-crafted song. I always say, because production can take a song to so many different places. When you strip the production all away, and if you can play that song with just an acoustic guitar and a vocal, or just a piano and a vocal, and it translates, that's the mark of a great song, in my opinion. So hopefully fans will get to, hear the depth behind the lyric and the message, and hear it just in a different way. And it's something different.
Do you have a favorite song when it's full production versus unplugged?
Ooh, that's a great question. There was a song early on in our older catalog. It was a song called Witness that I co-wrote. And funny story behind that song. It's fun. People always ask songwriters, like, where do you get inspiration for songs? And most of the time it's life, things you go through in life, usually spark ideas. Sometimes you come up with a song title first, and then you build a song around that. Sometimes it's a riff on the guitar, a chord progression on the piano. I was in Foot Locker, and there was a poster of LeBron James on the wall, and on the poster it said Witness. And it was something about what he was doing in the poster and that word visually that just screamed, wow, what a great song title. And so I took that title and came up with some music, a chord progression, sent it to Chris, and we ended up writing this song called Witness. On the album, it was fully produced. We ended up doing a stripped down version where it's just literally piano, vocal. And I really wish we would have recorded it that way to begin with, because the intimacy and the emotion of the song was portrayed much better stripped down than fully produced. So that's one of them for sure.
Will that be on this upcoming set list? Are you able to tell me?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Oh, all right.
Trying to keep my job right.
Well, when you see someone headbanging acoustic or full production to Over You, just ignore it. That'll be me at Del Lago in October.
Yep.
I want to segue a little bit away from Daughtry to what we've done, or what else you have done in our area. You've experienced what it takes to perform professionally at the highest level, but you've also made a point of bringing those lessons home and sharing them with young musicians. So what did you see missing for young Rochester musicians that inspired you to create Rockstar Academy?
I wouldn't necessarily say I saw something missing, but something did happen that was a light bulb that went off. When I was with Uncle Plum, we would play a lot of festivals, a lot of family-friendly events. And we were doing this one event, and there was thousands of people. It might have been like the Chili Festival or something. It was in the road, and I just remember a sea of people. And we were getting ready to kind of finish the set, and we went into a Chili Peppers song, Give It Away. And there was a whole group of young kids in front of the stage just jumping around and dancing. And I had this idea to just bring them up on stage. And I was like, which one of you kids thinks you got what it takes to be the next, I might have said like American Idol or the next rock star. And they're all waving their hands. And, and it just became this thing where the audience and I worked together. I basically told the audience, I go, look, here's your job. Your job is to make this kid feel like a rock star. And then I would look at the kid. I'd say, your job is to take this mic and do whatever you want. If you want to say, give it away now, you can do that. You can jump up and down, whatever. You guys make so-and-so feel like a rock star, and this is going to be great. And my sound man out front knew exactly what to do. And I handed the mic over to the kid, and the kid just started singing Give It Away Now and jumping up and down, and the crowd's going nuts. And I'm just looking at this, and I get chills every time I talk about it because I remember it like it was yesterday. That kid will never forget that for the rest of his life. There was thousands of people cheering and screaming, and the louder they cheered, the louder he got. And I was just like, I need to figure out a way to make more kids feel like rock stars. especially with social media and, what the metrics are for feeling cool. No, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a dangerous time that we're living in terms of confidence for kids and feeling good about themselves, feeling like rock stars. So we created this 1-week summer camp. This was back in 2009. And the premise of the camp was, look, we're going to pick you up in a limo. We're going to drive you around. You're going to feel like a rock star. We're going to put you in a band. And then all week long, you're going to learn 1 or 2 songs and you're going to perform in front of a live audience with a full backline of equipment. We'll get a stylist. If you want a mohawk, you get a mohawk. Whatever it is that makes you feel like a rock star, we're doing this. And it was so much fun. And each year it got bigger and bigger. Let me rewind for a second.
Sure.
One of my favorite students that we had in the summer camp was an autistic kid named Dylan. And Dylan was just full of energy and full of joy. After he would perform, he would jump up and down and just pump his fists and scream. And he came up to me one time and he said, I don't want to wait a whole nother year to do this. And that's when that light bulb went off. And I said, why can't I just model this after travel sports? And this becomes the travel sports for musicians. So in 2017, we made it a full year academy. We form bands, we give lessons, and then these bands get a professional coach, someone like myself that helps them get these songs together, works on their song list. And then we book 10 plus shows a year, whether it's Lilac Festival, Iron Smoke, Buntzies, Love and Cup, all these great live music venues. And that's their game. Like, that's their gig. And it's life-changing. It's life-changing for me as much as it is for the kids, because you realize how much they need it. And so I say it all the time. It is the absolute, outside of being a husband and a father, it's the most important thing I do.
Absolutely.
100%. Daughtry's fun. And I say this to him, so he wouldn't be mad. It's really, it's life-changing for a lot of these kids who they're not the quarterback of the football team. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for something. And we show them how cool they are. So,
what step in the process of, the musician first coming into the gig are you most excited to see or feel most proud when you see it come to fruition? So
we've had kids that come into the academy and they're almost nonverbal. They're so introverted, and parents will say, they literally lock themselves in their room and play their instrument. They don't really have friends. This is all they do. To see that person get on stage at Iron Smoke, rip a guitar solo, and have 300 people scream for he or she, that's life-changing. Like, for me, that is the moment. I want every kid that doesn't think he or she is cool, that's the kid that I want, because I know what this will do, and to me, that is the most important part of this whole process, and the most rewarding is when you see the shy kid on stage, stepping in front and just doing their thing. It's awesome.
And you mentioned some live venues that the kids are able to play at and you're able to book, but you have also created a space where musicians could learn and develop. You've opened another community space that brings together music, food, coffee, and your family heritage, Elvio's. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that and what the opening of Elvio's was like. What was that light bulb like?
Some might say I'm nuts, but it's been great. I've always had... I love coffee. I've had a passion for coffee, but I also enjoy the culture that is coffee shops, and, just meeting people and having conversation and meeting at a coffee shop. And when we're on tour, I'm constantly going to various coffee shops, mostly small mom and pop shops, local businesses all over the world. And they're all, very different. They're unique in their own way, but it's something I'm passionate about. And I live off of 5 Mile Line Road, and I would always go down Empire Boulevard towards 590 to go into the city, and I would crave coffee, and I was like, I don't want to turn around and go back and hit the chains. I wish there was a spot, and then this building became available. It was for lease, and it was on the water, and a friend of mine, Anthony Marsaki, and another friend of mine, Charles Chipola, we went into this together and decided to give it a shot. And we turned this little kayak rental place into a coffee shop. And in the middle of the shop so basically the structure was built around a construction trailer, if you can visualize this. Mm-hmm. And there's this elevated, kind of like a stage in the middle of the coffee shop that couldn't be removed. And we were like, what are we gonna do with this? It's like right in the middle of the room. And then I remembered, I was like, you know what? When I go to Nashville, they always have these songwriter rounds where the audience surrounds the artist. Let's make it the stage. And so we did that. And my family pretty much runs it. My brother's the head chef. He's a gifted chef. His daughters, my nieces, are the baristas, and they have free reign in terms of the menu, and it's all intentional Portuguese influenced. So, my aunts and uncles and parents, now it's a gathering place for our culture and community. And there's a music theme to it. And we book a lot of young, aspiring singer-songwriters, duos, and it's a safe place. It's like Planet Fitness, no judgment. This is where I want you to learn your artistry, learn, see what works, see what doesn't work. We're not going to judge you. And so far it's been a wonderful little addition to our town and this city, hopefully,
And you go behind the bar when you can, every so often. What's your favorite part about being able to stop in?
I become the cashier lately, which is fun because I get to meet everybody that comes up and have conversations and just meet new people and help out where I can. And a lot of times too, if there's an artist playing that is an Academy member or a kid that graduated from the Academy and they're playing a song that I know, I'll just run around and there's a piano there, so I'll sit down and play with them and just kind of join them. And we want the vibe to be, if inspiration strikes, go ahead and play. You don't need to be booked. The stuff is on all the time. So if you were to come in at 2:00 on a Thursday and felt like singing a song, go ahead.
I'll see you there.
There you go. Yes. We have karaoke if you need that. It's a good time.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So to end it off on a cliche note, when people eventually tell the story of Elvio Fernandes, what do you hope they mention beyond Daughtry?
One of those legacy questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love my legacy to be someone who genuinely cared about young artists, young musicians, and helped change the landscape of the future of the local music scene. And I've always said this, the greatest gift, in my opinion, is being a positive influence in the life of a child. So I have a hard time talking about it because it gets me choked up because right now I'm seeing all the kids that, needed the program and have transformed into just confident, incredible musicians that are thriving out in the local music scene. But that, I think Rockstar Academy, obviously being a good father and a good husband and a good friend to people would be nice, obviously. But in terms of my endeavors, Rockstar Academy definitely, I would love for that to be my legacy.
Have you been able to get your own children into music, or do they shy away from it?
They took lessons when they were younger, and they were good at it. But they weren't as passionate about it as I was, and I'm okay with that. I never pushed it on them. My mantra was always, or my advice was always, whatever you decide to do, just do your best. And they're thriving in their own unique ways, and couldn't be happier.
So cool to see. Elvio, thank you so much for joining us for
Thanks
Behind
for
the Curtain
me
today. If you cannot make it to Daughtry 20 Years Unplugged Tour on October 16th at Del Lago, always make sure that you stop in to Elvio's. I'm sure you'll find Elvio Fernandes somewhere soon. Again, Elvio, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for Behind the Curtain. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.